Maverick, welcome to
Hello.
Crafty.
So happy and stoked and excited to be here.
Man, well, let's talk a little bit about Deep in the Heart because I just got back from a festival that you program over the weekend and just had a blast. It's an awesome event, and I want everybody to submit there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I help program the shorts there. I've been doing that since the beginning. I guess next year will be our eighth year. We are changing the name. For 7 years, it was the Deep in the Heart Film Festival, and now it will be the Waco Independent Film Festival. And I'm really stoked for how much the festival has grown over the years, and that's a huge part to the festival directors, Samuel Thomas and Lewis Hunter. But I think like a year or so ago, the festival landed on a Movie Maker magazine. I think it was like 20 great festivals for first-time filmmakers, and so they really pride themselves in having a filmmaker-friendly event. And I just when I'm I program throughout the year, and my reward, I guess, for doing it is attending the festival, and when filmmakers attend, trying to help them network with other filmmakers or meet other people. And so um, yeah, I'm trying to think of what else to say, but
Well,
yeah.
you certainly liked embarrassing me over the weekend. I'll tell you that much. Um, all right, let's dive into my dinner with Werner.
Awesome.
As I tell everybody that I meet, including at the film festival this weekend, one of my favorite short films of all time. I think
Thank you.
it's so well crafted. It is hilarious. It's well acted, well shot, well directed, all the things.
Thank you.
And I want to talk about how this first came to be. Like, how did you decide to make a movie about Werner Herzog having this
Yeah,
crazy dinner?
I mean, honestly, it was. I've said this in several Q and A's, but it's the truth. It was born out of our love and fascination with Werner Herzog and Klaus Kinski, and what has been said to be their borderline murderous relationship.
Yeah,
For those that don't know, um, Werner Herzog and Klaus Kinski made 5 films together. They worked together for over 15 years. Their work is legendary. Their partnership is notorious. Their methods were dangerous. Their friendship is what I would call stranger than fiction. Both have sincerely plotted to kill each other uh, over during their collaborative experiences. And but in 1987, they stopped working together forever. I'm sure there's a lot of little reasons why, like wanting to kill each other, but there wasn't a singular event that led to their separation, if there was one. And so we thought, well, um, it would be fun to tell what really happened, the singular event that led to that, and have it all situated while Werner is on a blind date at a fancy restaurant and mustached. So,
naturally.
yeah.
So was this born out of like a conversation with friends? I mean, what was the
Yeah, I
sort of
mean,
I'm gonna write this screenplay moment?
in a way, I'm trying to think back because it was a while ago.
Sure.
Um, but I think it started off honestly with kind of a joke, which was if anyone is familiar with the film My Dinner with Andre, which is this um, I would say not quite experimental film, but a certainly innovative film about Wallace Shawn having dinner with Andre Gregory, but they're playing fictionalized versions of themselves, and they're just talking about life and art and theater. Um, and so I always thought, ooh, it would be funny if someone did that, but with Werner Herzog and Klaus Kinski.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I just stumbled upon the specific fact of the whole 1987 thing, and then that was the same era, or that was the same time as I think My Dinner with Andre in general, and so it kind of all kind
Sure.
of fell into place. Or I might have gotten that switched around. Maybe the original idea was Werner Herzog on a blind date, and then it turned into My Dinner with Andre. I don't know. It's fuzzy, but in general, it started off with the joke of wouldn't it be funny if, and then things just kind of started cascading towards what it is now. Just honestly, a lot of happy accidents and funny discoveries, and then that led to what it is now.
Sure,
So
sure. So, I mean, doing this film, obviously the casting was among the most important decisions that you could make, because finding somebody to play these two iconic people, characters in and of themselves, was hugely important. And how did you go about the process of casting and ultimately finding your two actors to play Werner and Klaus?
yeah, so for Werner, the first thing that we did is for both roles we cast online. Just we searched worldwide. But for Werner specifically, we first requested a self tape for actors to basically send us a tape of them performing the monologue from Burden of Dreams, which is Werner talking about the jungle being vile and base. It's that, really famous, or at least in the film world, famous monologue,
Hmm.
essentially, as he's in the midst of Fitzcarraldo and just trying to get through all of that. So we had actors first send us a tape of that so that we could see how they could embody the real Herzog.
Hmm.
After we got tapes of that, we then asked them to send us another tape uh, doing a scene from the film, from the
Hmm.
script. And that was to see how they could take what they've embodied from the real Herzog and adapt it to our sort of fictional version.
Hmm.
Because our character is not the real Herzog. It is very much so a fictional exaggeration and very much so his own fictional character. So we wanted to see how that could be adapted. And then finally, we did a chemistry test with the lead actress, China Walker, just to see what the chemistry would be like. And to speak quickly about China, that role was always developed. It was always for her, and it was developed with her. In some cases, written with her. We had worked together in a previous short film,
Shotgun,
and
right?
Shotgun, and we knew that
Yeah.
we wanted to work together again. So that was she's an original character, and we kind of developed everything with her. Now for Klaus, the process was loosely similar. We first requested a self tape from actors using a monologue that we had written from like his autobiography and other sources, just to see again how they could embody the real Kinski, and then of course have them do the same thing as Werner of okay, so you can embody the real person. How can you adapt that to this fictional character from the script? So we had another self tape, and then for Klaus, instead of doing a chemistry test, I just at that time Skype was the thing. So I Skyped with actors just to make sure, um, they would be normal human beings and not crazy. And but the we only did that with one person, and it was the person we ended up casting because in the midst of all of this, I got an email from an actor named Andrew Perez, and the email just basically said, "I've reincarnated Klaus Kinski." I'm like, "What is this?" And he had studied Kinski for years, worked with a vocal coach on The Voice, worn some of his clothes, and all an effort to put on a one-man show in LA that's like won awards and all kinds of stuff, where he is Klaus Kinski. So, and that was Andrew Perez. So we got very lucky there, and we got equally lucky with the person that plays Werner, Matthew Sanders, who coincidentally worked with some of Herzog's peers, Volker Schlendorf and Margaret von Trotta. But yeah, I mean, honest to God, like we got just so lucky with all of the cast, not just those three, but everyone in addition to that. So
So where did you end up finding? You had mentioned that the is Andrew was L.A. based, and then where
correct,
was
yeah.
where was
Um,
the guy who played Werner from?
so New York, but
Okay.
he sometimes will live overseas as well every now and then. So honestly, he's kind of sometimes hard to track. Like he's here, he's there, he's everywhere. But
Yeah.
I kind of from what I knew, he was in New York. But yeah,
Well, and it must have been nice too to have kind of China as the anchor, like somebody that
yeah,
you've worked with before, and
oh
then
yeah,
to build the cast around.
yeah. I mean, and also the thing about her character is, to me, anyways, she's very much so the ambassador for the audience, like the one
Totally.
that people kind of follow along with, like not, I wouldn't say the most normal, because her character has eccentricities like the others, just different.
Uh-huh.
But she's definitely the one that people kind of follow along with. So she's an anchor in that sense, and she was also an anchor in the casting and just kind of making sure everything worked around that. Because I knew, having worked with her and having talked about this film with her for so long, like I knew, if it worked all around her character, it hopefully should work, or it had a higher likelihood of working. Everything in this was a big risk, and it was, I always thought it'd be a disaster every step of the way, but we just kept getting lucky with who we ended up casting. And then so I don't know. I guess that's one fun thing about filmmaking, is the risks are kind of thrilling, and I think it gives you encouragement to do everything you can to not have anything succumb to that risk. So I don't know. That's a tangent, but there you go.
No, that's great. So I think like casting a net worldwide for the casting is kind of unique for a short film. I think a lot of times
Mm-hmm.
filmmakers will work either locally or with
Right.
people they already know or that kind of thing. And I think one of the other unique things that you did for something of this scale is build an entire set to shoot the
Yeah.
restaurant scene in. So do you want to talk about A, the decision to do that, and
Mm-hmm.
B, the logistics of pulling that off?
Yeah, I mean, and to speak quickly about the casting too, and why we made that decision, it was just, I knew that people that would see this have certain expectations going in about, someone playing a fictional Herzog and fictional Kinski. And so I didn't have the confidence that we could find that in a select area. So I just wanted to cast a wide net.
Yeah.
Now for the restaurant, it's pretty simple, which is we reached out to restaurants wanting to shoot the film in there, and given the events at the end of the film where things get destroyed, things get a little bloody, things
Yeah.
get a little chaotic, they were not really into us shooting in any restaurant. Now that is something we did look locally for.
Sure.
So that we did not cast a wide net. We looked in a pretty limited range. But yeah, no one was really willing to let us use their space. And also, the conditions that we were given sometimes, that we eventually, turned down in like one or two places, was, we'd have to shoot in this time, that time, and it just was not even remotely possible.
Yeah.
So we decided to build a set, and it worked out because the set would give us complete control. It could look the way that we wanted within, reason and budget. And it was just a great creative space in a lot of different ways. So we always wanted the look of the film to loosely mirror My Dinner with Andre, so that was kind of the starting point for how we want the restaurant to look. And yeah, I mean, the whole set was one of the hardest things of the film. There's no question. But I'm, at the end of the day, I'm glad that we did it, and I can't complain. I didn't lug a steamship over a mountain, So
Well, you so very casually say we built a set, but like, what does that what does that entail? I mean, is your production designer just like super super handy and crafty, or like what are the actual logistics of setting up an entire restaurant on a soundstage?
oh gosh, yeah. So it started with the production designer Twa, and she knew what I wanted the location to look like, so she would make renderings and whatnot of what that could be. And then from there, we had to find a space big enough to build a set. And thankfully, already knew of one, which was pretty close to where we're all based. And it's where I shot my last film, Shotgun. So that worked out. So we had kind of our area. We knew kind of what we wanted to look like. And then from there, it was just about building it. And so we had a team of, all kinds of people just working to kind of help build it. And a lot of that came to fruition from the kindness of people, and a lot of people that helped build the set and then continued working on the film. I'm trying to think of everything that happened, but so the we had to then construct it. And then, of course, the next thing that had to happen is it had to be decorated. So it had to be carpeted, it had to be painted. The trimmings and all the stuff had to be put on the walls. We had to find the props for all that and all the tables. Some of it was rented. A lot of it was bought. Some of it was made. It was a process. Gosh, it was a long time ago now, but it took several weeks. And it was very hard work. And, there were times when it again there was some risk involved in regard to like, is this gonna look the way that we hope? But at the end of the day, I think it turned out and I'm happy with it. No, it's funny to me at times when people see the film and they're like, what restaurant did you guys shoot at? And then I tell them, oh, it was a set. And then
I mean, I was completely fooled. Like, I had no clue until you told me at El Dorado back in the day. But
and that to me means a lot, and I think means a lot to the people that helped make it, because it means like, okay, we pulled that part off, and that was very, very hard work, because I've never done that for a film.
So, I mean, it's a huge undertaking. And even like, just thinking about the lighting, like if you're shooting in a practical restaurant, you are bringing in your own film lights, yes, but you're also probably utilizing a little bit of what's already built into the location in terms of light. So I imagine your DP had a much bigger task. Just knowing that how it was built.
Well, Dave and our DP was, I mean, very, very smart about it, and knowing like, okay, well, we have to find someone that knows how to light this, because lighting this kind of space is very different than a real location. And we were lucky to find Leo, who actually, by the way, is just a fantastic director. And so, but yeah, we just had a really, again, we had a really, really awesome team, and we got really fortunate with who we worked with in every step of the way. So the whole camera team and lighting team was obviously fantastic. So to work with, and I love them all.
So we've already kind of touched on some of it, but like, how else did you have to get crafty in order to make this movie?
I mean, I feel like the whole thing required me to get crafty. Gosh. I mean, I talked about casting, talked about the set. Some other things that I should probably mention. So the length of the film used to be almost twice as long as it is now. You are one of the very few people that has seen the longer version.
I was going to bring that up and ask about the sort of choice there, because I remember both versions being absolutely spectacular. And then, I talk about that choice.
Yeah. So, I mean, ultimately the original version of the short film was about almost 24 minutes. And of course the first rough cut was like 32 minutes. So, and now the film is like 17 and change. But we kind of ultimately felt like the 23-minute version, while, I still, like it, and other people that have seen it also like it, we ultimately felt like it was a bit too designed for like Herzog and Kinski enthusiasts. And our intention from the beginning is for the film to work for, of course, those people, but to also work for people that have no clue who Herzog and Kinski are. And ultimately the longer version, it just had some jokes that stalled the plot. It had some references that stalled the plot. And it just ultimately felt like it wouldn't be digestible for more general audiences. And it was just too long. Like, as you know, with film festivals, it's always ideal to keep films, under 20 minutes. The longer they are, the harder they are to program. And so it was all kind of part of that. And it just ultimately, there's something in my jellies that felt like it was just still a little too long, or something right about it. So we made a lot of sacrifices and made the 17-minute cut. But I mean, there's some big sacrifices that were hard to make. For example, the bathroom scene used to be all one long continuous take that we had to chop in pieces and chop about a minute or minute and a half out. The scene with the waiter talking to Werner used to be all one long take. Had to do the same thing there. There was a scene where when Werner gets knocked out with the chicken, he dreams of Jesse the Body Ventura telling him to get back up and get back in the ring. Um, there was a whole different ending.
Yeah, I
But
remember that.
it was really about, okay, we need to cut out these jokes that just slow the film down for jokes. We need to cut out these references that slow the film down for references. And in doing so, we need to find an even flow and not necessarily tell a new story, but think about what plot points just aren't really that necessary. What plot points don't flow. Um, and yeah, so the good news is, I mean, we're working on a feature length version right now, and a lot of those
Ooh.
elements that were cut, the Jesse the Body Ventura thing, for example, will hopefully make their way back in a version that can breathe a bit more, but a version that is also not, I think, what people would expect. It doesn't just expand upon the short. It's in some ways a whole new adventure, but
Oh,
I,
cool.
I have to tell my favorite story about being crafty.
Okay.
This is one of my favorite stories making the film. So in the film, uh, there are like brief moments with a bamboo blowgun, and
Hmm.
it's what you if you watch the film, you know what I'm talking about. Those bamboo blowguns were made during a Thanksgiving holiday with my grandma and my aunt in her backyard with machetes chopping up bamboo trees, making the bamboo blowguns, and that's what's in the movie. And that's like my one of my favorite movie memories making the movie.
It was a whole family affair.
Oh yeah, dude, we were so into it, but it was so fun, and oh, and my grandma also made some of the sample blood in the film. Of course, our makeup artist Blythe Tierney Dever, she made the actual blood, but my grandma made the sample blood where we had to like test effects and whatnot. So,
Oh, that's
but
awesome.
I'm just letting her think that she made the blood in the film. So
Well, give grandma that one.
there's a photo of that too. So I'll send
So,
them your way.
so you keep alluding to like the we, like we cast
Yeah,
a wide net. We, thought about
yeah,
all these decisions. So who is that creative team that's kind of reinforcing your, vision and this kind of thing?
yeah. I mean, well, really, I say that just because it feels weird saying I.
No, I know. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
team effort. Yeah.
yeah. So there's that element, but also, oh gosh, like well, with many things in the film regarding like the story and whatnot, it was written by myself and a person named Ryan McNamara, and so we worked really, 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 really hard on the script. Again, to do what I mentioned earlier of making it work for enthusiasts, but also making it work for people that aren't familiar with this world. But also, we had a team of producers. So my wife Marla, one of my or all my other friends, like Stephen Trebus, Brian Elliott, Jake Moore, Elena Moore. It was Elena Hudson. Now they're married, so it's Elena Moore now. So by the way, I should say Jake Moore and Elena Moore are not related to me. There's just
Oh, okay.
more Moores,
More Morse.
more Moores. Um, gosh, I'm trying to think if that's everyone, but yeah, like Ryan. When I say we, I mean that could mean a whole mix of people related to whatever that decision that needed to be made. But I just, I like working with people, but as regarding producers, Marla, Jake, Elena, Ryan, Steven, Brian, Elliot. I think I mentioned Brian Elliott. I mean, they were all so helpful in getting the film made. And Ryan, of course, was sort of my partner in crime through much of it. And then, of course, China being involved from the get go would help us make decisions as well here and there. And as things unfolded into other areas, whether it be pre-production or cinematography or sound and or even editing, you collaborate with more people and you welcome more people into that process. So
More Morse.
more is yeah.
I want to talk about the fundraising for this short because,
Mm-hmm.
money is always kind of the central question on whether or not these projects get done.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to having to put together a whole production of the movie, you also had to put a whole production of the fundraiser and
Mm-hmm.
doing an
Yeah.
online crowdsourced fundraising. So talk about that and like, what you did to do that successfully. I think a lot of people could probably
Mm.
learn a thing or two from that.
Oh gosh, so that was a whole adventure in and of itself. Um, so, excuse me. I mean, I know the one thing that was really important to us is that when we do like the crowd funding video, I did not want to do like me talking to the camera, please donate, yada yada yada. Works for some people, would not have worked for this, in my opinion. So we want to do something different, and so we thought, how about we just have the chicken talking to the audience and explaining what the film is and saying, please donate, yada yada. And we were able to get Crafty and not only shoot that, but when we shot that stuff, we actually shot the intro for the movie. So that way we only shot with the chicken once.
Yeah.
So that's one way that I think we tried to minimize the amount of work needed for both crowdfunding and the film, just to try to be as economical as possible. But I mean, it was really just trying to get the idea of the film out there, introduce that to people, excite them about it, and hopefully they'd want to donate. But the finances for the film came from three places. One of them was crowdfunding. One of them was from where I teach. I got some money for that. And one of them was, unfortunately, from my own pocket, which I do not need or want to do that again. But, and I always it wasn't like, oh, we went way over budget and then I had to spend all this money. No, I always kind of intended to do that. But I have now gotten to a point where I just don't want to do that again. Just because I know there are means to not doing that. And so I was just kind of familiar with doing that beforehand, and it gave me some, almost like a little less pressure in a way. Like sometimes I feel bad asking people for things, But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of like what else to say about all the crowdfunding stuff, but it was a mad hustle just to like get it out there, introduce it to people, reaching out to people like you to help us get the word out, and just trying to think outside of the box in regard to how we can attract people to the idea of this project with like the chicken and all of that.
Well, crowdfunding stuff can be like a full-time job in and of itself. It really can be. Yeah.
It was really, really, really stressful, but I'm glad that it worked out. I'm very thankful for the kind people that believed in the project, and whether they told someone about it or posted about it or donated, I'm just really thankful, because the film wouldn't have been made without the generosity of those people.
So you brought up your teaching job.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to ask what you learned during the making of this film that you teach to your students.
I mean, everything. The reason I as you know, program shorts, I teach, I make films when I can, and all of them teach me something that informs the other. So programming teaches me things that informs how I make films.
Yeah.
Programming teaches me things that informs my teaching, just like filmmaking does for programming in a way. It's just like filmmaking does for teaching. So, I mean, everything from casting the way that we did, from building a set, to not making a film that's too long, to making sacrifices, to how to make bamboo blowguns, I mean, everything. That's why I do what I do, is it all informs the other. And, that's why it's hard to self-identify. Like, I don't know if I'm a programmer or a teacher or a filmmaker. I'm just feel like I'm a bundle of the three.
Yeah.
Just because it's all part of the same passion, I guess. But so yeah, everything informs everything else. So,
like, I remember the first time I watched films for El Dorado Film Festival,
mm-hmm.
and it sounds like very much a cliche to say, but it's like it almost like pulled back the curtain on the whole process. And I remember thinking like, God, there's so many like really sad, depressing films, and like when a comedy would pop up, you'd be like, oh my God, it's a comedy. So like I would love to, because again, this channel is about educating filmmakers and audiences and that kind of thing. So as a programmer, what's the kind of stuff that you would maybe say to steer clear of or avoid, and what's the kind of stuff that really gets you excited when you see it pop up?
Absolutely. So, I should say, in addition to programming for Deep in the Heart, formerly Deep in the Heart, now Waco Independent, is I also screen for other film festivals, been on juries for others. So
Yep.
I've been a part of a variety of film festivals, and through My Dinner with Werner, I've been to other film festivals as well. So I've seen a lot of shorts, and what and I incorporate all of this stuff into class. Like, this is one way it informs the other, is I teach about film festivals and strategies and things to do, things to not do. In one class, I have students work as volunteer screeners. That said, my first tip for any filmmaker, far and away, and it can be grueling at times, but the best piece of advice I have is to volunteer to be a screener for a film festival, truly, because you will see what everyone is making out there,
Yep.
and you will see a lot of not so great stuff, but you will also understand what it means to stumble upon something great,
Hmm.
and it does something unspeakable to you, and it does something that it's hard to put into words, but it's like it helps things kind of click. But what you realize by doing that is a lot of people are not only making the same kinds of mistakes, but a lot of people are telling the same kinds of stories.
Hmm.
And so, to answer your question, one of the things that sticks out to me is originality.
Yep.
Stories that are original or originally told. Of course, meeting the prerequisite of being shot well, it sounds well, the acting is good, the story is good. The other thing that jumps out to me truly is story is everything.
Yep.
Story is the most important thing with any film. Um, we get I'm sure you know this very, 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 very well, screening and programming and directing a festival. Uh, we get a lot of films that just look cool, and that only goes so far. It's all about how it connects with you. Um, I'm trying to think of all the things that I tell my students, but another thing is, as far as like the genres, I think drama, I think, is the most competitive category at
Yeah,
any
it's the hardest.
film festival. There are less comedies. I always encourage filmmakers starting out to actually start with comedy, because sometimes if your film is comedic, sometimes that can help to some degree people overlooking some flaws it might have.
Hmm.
So it's great for filmmakers starting out, and the stakes just aren't as high. For if you were a starting filmmaker, like trying to make a drama, where if you make a drama and a part of it's a little soft focused, or like you have a little sound issue here and there, like that kills it. In a
Yep.
comedy, if it's funny enough, you can overlook it sometimes. Sometimes. um, I also tell people, horror has the same stakes as drama. Like, things can't really be bad about it, or it ruins it. But there are a ton of horror film festivals out there, a ton of genre film festivals out there, and
Yep.
that community is of just genre filmmakers in general is just so kind and awesome. Um, I think a great category to make films within, this, I'm sure, is of course family oriented films. Just because, and I say this, my films kind of hard PG-13, maybe soft R, but I know for a fact that every year festivals need good quality family oriented short films that don't explode someone's head or say the F word or
Yeah.
have mounds of cocaine. Festivals need those kinds of films, and so that is a great direction to go as a filmmaker as well. I'm trying to think, and
Well,
of course, go ahead, sorry.
no, I was just gonna say, like, just piggybacking off that, because,
Yeah,
as you know, Addie won Best
yeah,
Family Short
yeah,
at Waco, and it's by far the film that I've made that's gotten into the most film festivals. And I think the reason is because I'm playing the family category at all these film
yeah,
festivals,
yeah,
and it has made it 10 times more programmable than if
yeah,
it was like a more adult oriented drama.
yeah,
And I'm not saying it's the best film I've ever made or the best
yeah,
whatever. It's just it's made it so much more appealing,
yeah,
I think, to shorts programmers, because they're
yeah,
like, I know where this film fits in my categories. Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, again, like festivals typically are really hungry for that because they have audiences that need to see films like that, that can't see films, with F words or exploding heads or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's a great avenue to kind of jump into as a filmmaker. Very, very advantageous. And I'm thankful for, people like you that are making films like that, making them of a high and impressive quality. There's just not. I wish more people were doing that, but I'm really grateful that you are, and you're crushing it.
Well, one of the films that you brought up to me over the weekend was a film called Non-Negotiable that I
Oh
just
yeah,
watched
yeah,
virtually.
yeah,
And you talking about the comedic short films, it's like
yeah.
just because it's a comedy doesn't mean it can't pack an emotional punch
Oh
or
yeah,
have a good dramatic moment.
yeah,
And so like filmmakers can definitely lean into that, have it
yeah.
be a comedy for the most part, but still have that really poignant message in there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think any genre you make a film within, it doesn't hurt to mix some genres because that can also help them be programmable. Like, I was just talking to a filmmaker this last weekend who made he thinks it's a comedy short, which it is, but it also is a horror short, and it also can be considered a midnight or like genre film short. And so it's
Sure.
nice to, if you have multiple genres within your film, then you're much more programmable. And of course, the other things that I should mention about programming, for filmmakers to know, so important. Number one, like be strategic about your premieres, because some festivals don't care, some
Yeah.
festivals really care.
Yeah.
So you want to think about um, where you're playing first, either worldwide or in certain states. There is nothing more heartbreaking to me, nothing, and this is one reason why I teach about this stuff, because I didn't know this until I learned it by mistake. There's nothing more heartbreaking to me than a person making an excellent film and they don't know about this premiere stuff, and they play at um, I don't want to say the word smaller, but a smaller film festival somewhere, and it shuts them off from playing at a festival that could be Oscar qualifying or whatever,
Yeah.
just because of the premiere stuff. When their film is of the quality to be able to, and they just didn't know any better. And then what that does is it only continues to hurt them as they continue to play festivals. That's the most, I mean, heartbreaking thing when just because of that, not because of the quality of the film. Um, I see filmmakers being impacted by that. So I make sure I tell all my students just how important premiere strategies are and being smart about submissions, because um, you don't want to make that mistake. And I say I've made the mistake, but we ended up doing fine with that film. So I'm not referring to me. I'm definitely referring to some friends that I have had, or even
Sure.
filmmakers I meet at Deep in the Heart or other festivals that I hear stories from, and it's gutting. But the other thing, and this is something I'm bad at taking my own advice on, which is keep your short films under 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So this last one, I think I just kind of got a little too indulgent. But yeah,
Well, no, but I think, even though my dinner with Werner it does run on the longer side for a short,
yeah,
I think making those really hard decisions about what to take out when it starts at a 30-minute cut and you boil it down
yeah,
to a 17-minute cut. I think a lot of young filmmakers, especially, could learn from that message of
yeah,
killing your darlings and
yeah,
you know really showing it to other people and really putting it under a scrutiny of what
yeah.
is necessary to tell the story. And I think when your 17-minute film feels like everything in there is necessary to tell the story, it doesn't feel like a 17-minute film anymore. It feels like a tighter
Right,
piece.
right. Yeah, and I mean the 17-minute cut right now, to me it feels like on the bone, or to the
Yeah,
bone, I guess you should say.
yeah,
It, but I know I've heard from others, oh, it's still a little too long. But then I'm just like, well, you don't know how long it used to be. But it's all subjective. But it is a very important practice to be able just to be brutal with your films, and a lot of that came from just welcoming people into the editing process, just to watch different cuts and just kind of get their opinions on every single step of the way. And I know you were very, very helpful with that as well, because like again, I sent you the longer one, sent you the shorter one, and I was like, ooh, what should I do? And you're
Good
very
stuff.
instrumental with that. But something that was told to me that I also want to share with filmmakers is if it's not pushing the story along, it needs to go. And in the longer cuts of the film, there were one of my favorite jokes. It was about one of Herzog's favorite books, being Winnie the Pooh, which is true.
Hmm.
Uh, that joke had to go because it didn't push the story along. It was just a joke, and so that is something I would share with filmmakers. And there's a quote that I always tell my classes by Darren Aronofsky, which is the movie isn't done until you've cut your favorite shot. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a good one. That's
uh,
painful, but it's a good one.
yeah, and it could apply to jokes. It could apply to obviously shots. It could apply to lines. It could apply to scenes. It could apply to whatever. But it's true. If it's only in there because you like it and it's not pushing things along, it's got to go.
Get it
Because
out of there.
people like us or other screeners, other programmers, festival directors, they don't have that connection that you do to the material, and they're just reviewing as is it working, is it pushing along, is it good, and so yeah. And
Um,
well,
oh,
my
sorry.
last thing, I have one more
Yeah,
thing. You got me
yeah, go for
started
it.
on all the festival advice.
Yeah, no, it's
So
great. I'm learning a lot too, so keep going.
the this is a sin I've committed. And again, my previous film, I didn't know any of this stuff. I learned it all through experience. But it was don't put credits at the beginning of your film. Have them at the end, and keep
Yeah.
your credits short in a short film. You do not need 3 minutes of scrolling credits. You don't. All it does is add to the runtime and make it harder to program. So again, that's another killing your darlings thing. Those are all the tips I can think of off the top of my head. Ultimately, make what you want to make, but I think just be smart about festivals, just because with short films, that's where they sometimes live and die. So
Yeah, not anymore. Not with Crafty.
that's true.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I want to ask about a specific moment in the movie because I watched it again before this interview and it made
Mm-hmm.
me just laugh so hard again.
Mm-hmm.
It's early on in the film when Werner gets shot with the dart in his
Mm-hmm.
neck. He takes it out, he tosses it, it hits the lonely patron,
Yeah.
and they pass out immediately when the dart
Mm-hmm.
hits them. So there's how did the timing of that? Like, how did you get that shot to work? Was that a digital manipulation or
A little bit of both.
okay?
It so we tried. I tried to not do too much digital like effects in the film. Only like when we had to, like the guns firing and the
Right.
finger explosions. But we tried to do practical stuff as much as we could, like even when the blood and all that. But yeah, and that's Philip Heinrich, one of the VFX artists, the main VFX artist in the film, is the person responsible for doing all that we had. But the dart is a mixture of practical and digital. So when it's flying through the air, that we actually did throw it in front of a green screen, but Philip, did his magic to have it go and then have it stick in the neck. But when it's in the neck, that's an actual practical effect.
Dart.
So
Yeah.
by the makeup artist that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And so really it was a mixture of I think Matt would pull out the dart and throw it, and then when it would fall on the ground, the actor in the back would,
React.
plop into the forgot what the food was, linguine or whatever,
Uh,
uh, and everything that happens behind them was improvised. So with the waiter and the patron, it was improvised, and the edit was a mixture of three different things that they did. So the splashing the water and the drink was one improvisation. I think like the patron falls out of the chair at the end. That was another one, and then the mouth to mouth was another improvisation. And then we just tried to edit it in a way that it all kind of went together. But that the timing was all entirely belonged to the performers. And all of them, had rehearsed things and were very close and were friends and all of that good stuff. But yeah, uh, it owed entirely to the actors because it was in many ways improvisation. And I like to do that. I am definitely a control freak in many ways. Like I'm involved with obviously the script and pre-production. I storyboard my own films. I do a lot of takes. I'm very particular. Do a lot of also coverage.
Hmm.
But I like to afford time and room and space for discovery and to play around and play around with improvisation. So that scene was improvised. The moment after the credits, when the waiter drinks the champagne, was improvised. And there's some lines that were, specifically the ones that I can remember, is when the China comes out of the bathroom and speaks to the waiter about like the tree or whatever. So that was
Hmm.
improvised. But the dart scene was a mixture of improvisation and editing and I guess a little bit of rehearsal and practical and digital effects. So
Cool.
that's one of my favorite parts of the movie as well, just because I was
Yeah.
really,
It's
it was fun to make. That scene was one of the most fun to shoot too. So
So you mentioned a lot of takes, a lot of coverage.
mhm.
How many days did this take to shoot?
Too many, just because, probably because of me. But it was always scheduled, so there was nothing. We didn't go over or anything like that. But
Right, right.
I mean, there were some days when I feel like we didn't get enough shot, and then there were other days when we had extra time. So it was a roller coaster of emotions. But
Sure.
it took, I believe, 10 days. So
Oh wow.
it took a
It's like half
while.
a feature.
Yeah, and that's, well, I think that was one sign that, oh, maybe this movie is going to be too long. That's
Sure,
probably
sure,
why
sure.
the movie was 32 minutes at first. Um,
That's
so
awesome.
yeah, but
Um,
yeah.
if you could go back and, knowing what you know now, or just taking your experience
Mhm.
learned from the making of the film and just change one thing in the process, what would you do differently?
So the script was always, I think it was 20 pages long, and this is not a mistake, but one of my big influences before jumping into the film was the newest season of Twin Peaks at the time, The Return. And if
Mm-hmm.
you've seen it, the pacing of it is very slow, and I directed the film at times very slowly. Like, meaning the performances kind of had this like slow rhythm to it that was kind of dry and awkward and hopefully funny in that way. But what I realized, the film, again, as I mentioned, was just too long. And so if I could go back and do anything, it would be to make the script shorter, so that the 17-minute version we have now, while I'm proud of it, it was, and I don't think it's quite a Frankenstein version, but I wish that the I wish I would have written a version about that long in the script. That way, I would have known, like, okay, this is my absolute best foot forward. Um, but yeah, hopefully people that watch the 17-minute version would never know otherwise. But it would be just to shorten it from the beginning. And this goes back to the whole programming advice: is kill your darlings. Don't, we'd always say, well, we'll fix it in post, or we'll cut it in the edit. But all it did was create pain and heartbreak. So just go ahead and rip the band-aid while you're writing, and kill your darlings while you're writing, because it's only harder after it's shot. And I think the film has been lucky to play several festivals, and people seem to enjoy it. And I think that is pure luck that they do, considering how much it's changed.
Mm.
Like, it should not have. This is not what the ending of the story should have been, given how much we had to change the film. But I'm very fortunate that that is the case. But I wish I could have just, you know, fixed it in the writing portion instead of just later. But I think every
Sure.
film is like that to a degree. That's not an excuse, but still, I kind of wish I would have been more careful from the beginning. That's probably why, I spend so long writing now, as just being extra, extra, extra careful. So,
Sure.
hope that
Well,
answers your question.
it does. Yeah, no, there's no wrong answers. That's a good answer. All right, to close this out, I'm going to tell you
Mm-hmm.
my favorite Werner Herzog story because I'm a huge Star
Okay.
Wars fan. And
Okay.
so
Yeah. Me too.
Werner Herzog is the whole reason that the puppet of Grogu, Baby Yoda,
Yeah.
is a puppet and not CGI, because he told Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni on set that they were
Yeah.
cowards for even considering using CGI to make Baby Yoda. Um, so I love him that he is the reason that that's a puppet, and I think it
Yeah.
works so well that Grogu is a puppet in The
Oh
Mandalorian.
yeah.
So what
Absolutely.
is your favorite Werner Herzog story?
Oh gosh, that's that's hard to ask me because I've looked through every single one of them.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, I should mention too, like, in efforts to make this film, we researched everything we could. Commentary, obviously, their films and the documentaries about them. Which, by the way, if anyone likes this film, you should watch Burden of Dreams and My Best Fiend, especially My Best Fiend because it focuses on Herzog and Kinski. We also read books about them. We listened to the commentaries about the films they made together. I listened to commentaries about other films Herzog has made, like really deep dived. And a lot of the stuff that they say and do in the film is based on stuff that they have said in real life. So I'm very much so familiar with everything Herzog. But I mean, I don't know. I'll give you some tops. Obviously,
Okay.
one thing that never made it in the film, ironically, that's a lot of people's favorite is, of course, he cooked and ate his own shoe, and it wasn't just like a little like tennis shoe; it was Clark's boot. Okay, and he did it as part of a bet with Errol Morris. That's a whole film that you can watch called Werner Herzog Eats His Shoe. So that's one of them. The other one, there's this interview he did with the BBC, which is referenced in the film. He was doing press for Grizzly Man, and while he's giving this interview on air, he's shot with an air rifle, and they like you hear like the and everything, and then afterwards they're talking to him in this room or whatever, and he shows the wound and it's like bleeding, and they're like, "Oh my god, you're bleeding!" And he said it's not significant, and so that's why he's
There's
shot
that
in the
line.
dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the
Yeah.
line. So there's that one. Of course, the infamous Burden of Dreams jungle monologue. Of course, that's one of them. There's a fable of him saving Joaquin Phoenix from a car wreck that you
Oh,
can.
really?
I don't know if that's real, but that's the thing about Herzog too is there's all these fictional stories about him, and he in one breath condemns them or seems to, and then the other breath welcomes them because it just expands his mythology and it gives him stooges or professional bodyguards, as he says. So he welcomes the imitators, and he's of the opinion you only end a rumor by telling a wilder rumor. And he, of course, in his this is another favorite thing. He will in his documentaries put in, and he admits to this, fake quotes and have totally made up facts throughout parts of them. He sees his narratives as documentaries and his documentaries as narratives, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so, gosh, I'm trying to think of all of the stories. I've deep dived into so many of them, I can't remember them all. I guess those are among my favorite. I know I'm forgetting some, but I just can't. I can't. Well, of course, the best, my favorite, without a doubt, that's in the film, and that he's said in numerous interviews, in articles, and on TV and conferences, is the rifle story. And if you listen to him tell the rifle story, which is in the film, he will say it verbatim, almost the same way every single time.
Wow.
And that's one fun thing about him is, he parodies himself, or plays, you could say, fictional versions of himself, or plays villains. He knows, I believe he knows he's funny. I think he has even said he thinks he's funnier than Eddie Murphy. And just because he knows they get a laugh. And so that's why I think he repeats stories in the same way over and over, just because he knows the reaction that they get. Look, and here's the thing. I know the film to a degree lampoons him and Kinski, but honestly, it is made out of love and fascination with both of them, because I think Herzog is a brilliant madman, genius, one of the greatest living filmmakers period, and will be respected for his work for forever. And I think
Totally.
it's made out of honor for him, and in the spirit that I think and I hope he would appreciate, as it fictionalizes some truths and exaggerates things, and I don't know, but it's absolutely made to honor his awesomeness.
I think that's a great place to close this out. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
sharing the film with our audience and for making it. And yeah, hope to have you back on here again soon.
Thank you, and I guess thanks to everyone watching, and that anyone that has watched or supported or shared the film. It really, really, really means a lot to us. Again, we made it so that people will hopefully have a good time at the movies, and I hope that happened. Either way, thanks for watching, and means a lot to have your support. And stay tuned for hopefully a feature length version down the road.